off a copy of Dead Gone for your Legacy deck.
Yeah, Dead Gone is a card that has seen play on occasion in Legacy. Not really so much in Modern, but the fact that it can bounce a Merit Lodge is pretty cool. And it can't even get hit by a Chalice of the Void either.
It's pretty big during Deathrite Shaman Legacy.
Yeah.
Players underway here. Here's that Nurturing Peatland for David Long, and he's going to cast the Thoughtseize off it. So he'll be at 17 after resolution of this. Taking a look at Ingram's hand, Tropical Island, Wasteland, Daze, Ponder, Delver, Tarmogoyf, Abrupt Decay.
Now, this is going to completely depend on what is in Dave Long's hand, what he takes here. So even though we can't see his hand, we'll get a little bit more information on what's in his hand based on what he takes. The standouts to me are Delver of Secrets, which he does take because it provides the most pressure for the least amount of mana. And then my other pick was going to be Daze, just because it can disrupt your turn 2 Dark Confidant if that's what he has.
Tropical Island Ponder will be the turn 1 for Ingram here with that Delver in the discard pile already. See what he can find with the Ponder. It's going to be a shuffle.
Yeah, a couple lands there. He doesn't really need a whole lot of mana. Probably going to deploy a Tarmogoyf next turn with Daze backup. So that's going to be his game plan for now. Though the longer he waits to keep that Wasteland untapped, the more likely it is that Dave can do some cool shenanigans that involve putting a Dark Depths and a Vampire Hexmage on the battlefield quickly.
Ingram draws off the Ponder and passes, and we'll see how much damage Long can do. Playing into a known Daze here. He also knows about a Wasteland.
Yeah, the Wasteland is going to be the key part of this 4-color Delver hand.
You got to figure if Long were able to take it, the Thoughtseize would probably be going that way.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why these Golgari Depths have played main deck Pithing Needle in the past, though I do believe Long is not playing any in his main deck.
And he's actually playing 3 main deck Wastelands of his own, so that's kind of how he counterplays against Wasteland.
Sure. I think that's just going to mean that if you know deck lists, you need to main phase Wasteland on those combo lands more often than not, just because if Long gets a chance to Wasteland target your Wasteland, if you activate it, then he can make a 20/20 in response, and then you're just dead.
So Long is going to sacrifice a Verdant Catacombs to 16, cast another Thoughtseize, go get a look at a Dreadhorn Arcanist and a Polluted Delta added to the hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you take here if you're Long. The Daze might not be a factor anymore. Abrupt Decay can kill Dark Confidant, but I don't think that Dark Confidant is the way you win this game. So I would probably buy myself a lot more time and get like the Tarmogoyf out of here. But, you know, it's all contextual. These discard spells, you know, they're playing a very specific role in Dave Long's Golgari Depths deck, and not only protection, but also just to buy you some time.
Taking the Delver off the first Thoughtseize made it feel like Long probably has a slower hand. He's going to go for Tarmogoyf as a selection here, taking another threat, the one that hits the hardest, falling to 14 from the Thoughtseize. They go to 13 off the Peatland and cast Duress.
Yeah, and this is no reason to daze this. If you're Ingram, the Duress is almost likely the hit anyway.
And Daze is the take.
All right, Ingram's going to get to untap here and play Dreadhorde Arcanist and see if he can gain some much-needed card advantage, find some disruption here. But he could play it a little slowly and just go Wasteland Pass and just wait for those important lands to come up. But I think he has one more turn of a window to resolve a threat here with that Arcanist. And once he gets that going, if he has a Wasteland on the battlefield, he's basically taking the initiative and forces Dave Long to react first.
So Ingram's going to sacrifice Polluted Delta, goes to 19, cast Dreadhorde Arcanist off of the wonderful mana base of Tropical Island Badlands. People are lining up to play this mana base.
Honestly, it's not as bad as you think. I've played worse mana bases when I was playing. It was basically Esper Deathblade, but it had green in it. Like I had main deck Abrupt Decay, and that was a mana base only a mother could love.
Deathrite Shaman made things a little bit easier back then.
Yeah.
Thespian Stage is a land for turn, and Sylvan Scrying will be cast for Long.
Looks probably going to get Dark Depths here, which he does. Now, Ingram's going to get to play a Wasteland, and now he has to decide if he wants to go ahead and main phase it and run into crop rotation, or kind of hold on to it and wait to see if David goes for the activation. Dave's super heads-up player, though. He's not going to walk into it. So this is basically just who blinks first at that point.
Ingram was going to attack with Arcanist. He's going to use that to cast Ponder from the graveyard. His draw for turn was Force of Will, so some pressure to just find a blue card.
Yeah, it looks like he did find a blue card on top with another Ponder. My guess is he's not going to cast it. He's just going to go Wasteland Pass, have Force of Will at the ready to stop a potential Vampire Hex Mage or something like that. And maybe go ahead and just Wasteland on the Thespian stage so you don't get hit with a Wasteland yourself to start that reactive chain.
The Ponder was kept. Arcanist knocks along to 12. In post-combat, Ingram's going to cast Ponder here.
Yeah, the likelihood of him finding another blue spell is pretty high, and he just wants more food for the Dreadhorde Arcanist. And he probably saw 2 blue spells in the Ponder.
I know that the third card was a land in the Ponder. He's going to cast this Ponder and keep again. Play that Wasteland that both players knew about. He's thinking about if he wants to main phase that. He does not. He will pass to Long. I believe Long just picked up a Wasteland of his own, but can only play 1 land a turn, so he can't quite set up Dark Depths Wasteland here.
Yeah, I think if I'm Long, I just go Dark Depths pass. Don't try to activate. Don't do anything. And then on your next turn, you play the Wasteland, and then you go for that.
Long's a player that we see in the legacy seat of a lot of these team opens, a very deliberate player. And almost always comes out of it with the right line. His top 8 conversion is just absurd. He was going to play Wasteland, so he's still got the Dark Depths in hand.
If he has a crop rotation in hand, this could be an insane play. Because at this juncture, Ingram is pretty much just sweating a 2020 next turn because the Wasteland, targeting Wasteland will start the chain, and then when Ingram fires off his Wasteland, Long can then activate the Thespian stage targeting the Dark Depths.
Ingram will start his turn with an attack with the Arcanist, once again casting a Ponder from the graveyard.
Unfortunately, Abrupt Decay, while it can't be countered, doesn't do anything to the indestructible 2020 token from Dark Depths.
Here's a shuffle off the Ponder. Renin 6 drawn. That one might be good.
Yeah, actually, this is insane. So Ingram here, I think, should go ahead and Wasteland targeting Thespian stage, then play Renin 6, get back the Wasteland, play it, and say go. He has a Force Will to play around crop rotation, and he has a Wasteland at the ready afterwards.
Wasteland targeting Thespian stage.
And this is kind of why I wanted Long to play the Dark Depths first, because now he can't actually threaten making the 2020 in response to the Wasteland. And I think he's in a bit of trouble now.
So that Wasteland was just good. Renin 6 is cast. Ingram picks up the Wasteland and plays it again. And he'll pass turn back to Long.
Yeah, now you're going to see the real power of Renin 6. Rebuying Wasteland, this is going to be a nightmare for Dave to get through.
Yeah, you see a battlefield of just 3 non-basic lands, so Wastelanding every turn. Pretty easy to piece together why that's great.
Oh, or he's just going to make a 2020 because of Vampire Hex Mage. But, of course, Ingram has the Force of Will to stop those shenanigans. And I believe David Long is basically out now.
Yeah, that Force is a big deal. I think Long with a 2-card hand, one of which is Dark Depths. It's only half a combo, and Ingram is flush with Wastelands now on tapping with that Renin 6.
Yeah, and if Long plays the Dark Depths here, you're just going to see it get hit with a Wasteland. Renin 6 is going to buy it back, etc., etc.
Long plays Urborg as his land for turn. Go back to Ingram. Long at 10 after using that Nurturing Peat land to cast the Hex Mage. Arcanist not the fastest clock, but it does not need to be when you're Wastelanding every turn.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Delver decks that play Renin 6 and Dreadhorde Arcanist slowed down quite a bit, but they also just have a significantly better late game than they used to have.
Wasteland targeting Wasteland for Ingram.
This is pretty interesting. That stops that chain I was talking about earlier with the initiating first.
Long a ways back, targeting Ingram's Tropical Island. All those lands go to the graveyard. Running 6 pluses to 5. Brings back Wasteland for Ingram. He'll play that.
And he didn't float a blue, saving the Brainstorm, I believe.
Arcanist knocks Long to 9. We'll see what Long can do about it. Just had Dark Depths going into this turn in his hand. He'll sacrifice Nurturing Peatland to draw a card. Drew a Thoughtseize. Little too late for that one, I gotta figure. Bajuka Bog targeting Ingram, but the Wasteland's just on the battlefield.
Yeah, but that does actually constrict Ingram off of blue mana, unless he has a way in hand to make blue mana.
Passes back to Ingram. Draw was a Lightning Bolt. That speeds up the clock a lot.
Yeah, so here I would just assume he's going to go Wasteland, getting rid of the green and probably the Bayou, or the Bayou and the Urborg. And then just attack for 1. Maybe Bolt and attack for 7, basically.
Yeah, Wasteland targeting Bayou is where he starts. Running 6 up to 6. Pick up the Wasteland. Play that again. Attack with Red Heart Arcanist. Holding off on the Lightning Bolt for now. Long down to 8. Long will draw for turn. Though this game is getting close to being over.
Yeah, I think Ingram knows that next turn he can go Bolt, attack, Bolt, minus on the Renin 6. And he didn't want to give it away. But I think writing's on the wall here.
No action for Long. He passes to Ingram, and Ingram, I believe, has lethal this turn. Lightning Bolt targeting you. You go to 5. Arcanist, attack. Lightning Bolt you to 2. 1 point off the Arcanist. 1 last point off the Running 6, and Peter Ingram is up a game over David Long.
Yeah, that was just a key showcase on just how good Renin 6 is with Wasteland in Legacy. The card just absolutely punished Dave Long. Even though Ingram didn't really get more mana on the battlefield than Dave Long at basically any point, the fact that he was able to continually disrupt those lands made, Renin 6 the MVP by far.
Definitely. The Wasteland on Ingram's side looked a lot more powerful than the one on the Long's. Players going to reach for their sideboards, see if David Long has some tools that can help him out here. Now down a game. He has 3 Plague Engineer, 3 Pithing Needle, 3 Hymn to Turok, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Sylvan Safekeeper, a Liliana the Last Hope, a Caracas, and an Assassin's Trophy.
I think, so if you try to play the long game against this version of Delver, I think you're going to be in some trouble. So with that said, I think that you probably just want Pithing Needle on Wasteland. You may want some number of Hymn to Toroks to just kind of clear the way. And then maybe the Sylvan Safekeeper just to protect some of your threats. But, Dark Confidant looks pretty embarrassing in the face of Renin 6 and, an aggressive start from the opponent. Sometimes it'll just end up killing you. So
yeah.
you got to be careful. I would not sideboard too much if I was David Long, but, he is a master of this archetype. I'm sure he knows exactly what to side in and out.
And for Peter Ingram, he has a Cinderbinds, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Liliana's Triumph, 2 Plague Engineers, 2 Red Elemental Blasts, 2 Surgical Extractions, 2 Thoughtseize, and 2 Winter Orb.
So if you're Ingram, you're going to be looking at ways to deal with the 2020 token. You're also not going to mind bringing in something like Plague Engineer. You can either name Vampire, and it'll always kill Vampire Hexmage, or you can name Human or Wizard, and it'll always kill Dark Confidant. The downside, though, is that it's going to shrink your Dark Confidant, or it's going to shrink your Delver Secrets as well. So, but it is a preemptive way to deal with Hexmage, which I do like. You want to basically become as much of a control deck as possible. The Liliana's Triumph are great. The Surgical Extractions I wouldn't really bother with, even though you could maybe get lucky with a Wasteland Surgical Extraction. It's not really that useful. And then Thoughtseize, I think, a lot of these Golgari Depths decks can combo without actually playing spells. So counter spells and discard effects are not always as good against this deck as they would normally be against this type of deck.
Sure. Over on StarCityGames.com, we got a sale going because we've always got a sale going, updated every Monday this week. Sale on HP cards, which Legacy players, pick up those old, well-loved cards for your deck. You see Mind Over Matter there. That one, I do not believe Legacy legal, as well as Demonic Tutor. But I've seen Phyrexian Dreadnought recently. Stifle Knot actually got an upgrade with Lazav from the new Ravnica set.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
That's a cool one.
I will say this, as someone who has played a lot of Magic tournaments in my career, If you're going to pick up cards for an older format, you should almost always buy HP if you're going to play with them a lot. Now, if you're the type of person who likes your foils and you like to double sleeve and you really take care of your cards, maybe this sale isn't for you, but you can check on Monday for a new sale for next week. But if you are planning on playing these cards in a tournament, 100% check out this go.srcgames.com/sale for the HP sale.
I double sleeved my legacy cards for a couple years, and taking them out of the perfect fits was one of the most liberating moments in my Magic career.
Full disclosure, I have never put my own card in a perfect fit.
I like my cards well loved.
Yeah, I sold a bunch of cards to Star City recently because I'm moving, and I just can't take everything with me. And let's just say my Snapcaster Mages that I sold, I did not get very much money for.
Perfectly creased down the middle.
Yeah.
All right, so for David Long, his match not going so well so far, down a game, but his team is putting in some good work. Robert Long and Julian John both up a game in Modern and Standard.
Well, that's good news for Dave. This 4-color Delver deck looks pretty good, and with Wasteland being a key factor in the matchup as well as Rin and 6, there's a chance that Ingram just sweeps him here 2-0. All right, both players shuffling up here, trying to figure out how sideboarding, I think, for the Azorius v. Is It Phoenix matchup.
If you're going to play a deck like Azorius Control, you got to have a sideboard plan ready for a deck as popular as Is It Phoenix. I think I spotted Soorani playing this matchup a couple, 3 times already this weekend. That one's looking to be a popular one going into the Mythic Championship.
Yeah, I think there's like 5-ish decks at the top of this food chain in Modern. I think Azorius Control, Is It Phoenix, Normal-ish Dredge featuring Forgotten Cave, I think is a great addition to the archetype. And then I think Humans is number 4, and I'm really struggling on number 5. You know, I'm not sure if it should be Death Shadow, which traditionally has a good Is It Phoenix matchup, but has notably a pretty bad Humans matchup. You know, there's a couple of archetypes kind of on the fringe. I guess there's 4 that are in major contention for good, I would say, good picks for the Mythic Invitational.
Sure.
Or Mythic Championship.
I think that Eldrazi Temple Strategies as an overarching archetype is a really strong consideration if I was preparing for the event. There's a couple of different flavors of that. We saw White Eldrazi from Tom Medvec in round 1 of this tournament. Colorless Eldrazi, I think, a pretty serious contender as well.
Now that Relic of Progenitus is good again, you know, there's a chance that with the London Mulligan, just actual mono green Tron might be good as well. I think that you know, Azorius Control kind of beats up on it a little bit, just because you have so many ways to disrupt the lands, and you know they no longer have Ayavugan to win the late game with an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn.
That's been a couple years now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, Field of Ruin a big upgrade in that matchup too.
As someone who's played with and against Tron for basically 8 years now, you know, blue-white control decks were a joke. You just ran wild on them with your one of Ayavugan. They couldn't do basically anything about it. They've got a lot of upgrades since then, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Narset Parterville's being one of the major upgrades, giving you some real trouble if you're a Tron player trying to cycle through those Chromatic Stars and Spheres.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's huge. Players underway in game number 2 here. Ingram on a mulligan to 6, Long on a 7. Just a couple lands to start. On turn number 2, Long has a Mox Diamond, discards a Bayou to that. He's going to cast Crop Rotation, discarding the Bayou he had in play. Goes and finds Dark Depths.
I think we're just going for it.
Yeah, still has not played a land this turn, so he has Mox Diamond at the ready.
Yeah, and if Ingram doesn't have Force Will or some piece of disruption here, a Vampire Hexmage might just make a 20-20 here on turn 2 and close the game.
And you got to figure if there's a Force of Will, Crop Rotation's a juicy target for that. Urborg's the land for turn. Here's Vampire Hexmage. Does that resolve? Ingram does have Force of Will, though. It's Force pitching Force, so go to 19 and check the Hexmage for now.
Now, you make a good point about the Crop Rotation, but The way that Pete Ingram was kind of playing that turn, he knew that Vampire Hexmage was basically the only card he needed to fear for that turn. But I would have liked to have seen the Force Will on the crop rotation because if he has, Thespian Stage in hand, he's going to get Dark Depths. If he has Dark Depths in hand, he's going to get Thespian Stage. But the way he was doing it led me to believe that he did not have Dark Depths in hand. So you want to keep that off the battlefield, whereas Long can now follow it up with a Thespian Stage and threat a 2020 next turn.
Sure. Ingram's going to try to get some pressure on the table. He's going to play Tropical Island to complement his Badlands. Tarmogoyf is the turn 2 play. We have instant creature land in the graveyard, so that's a 3/4. Let's see if Long can find another second half to that combo to go with his Dark Depths. Ooh, draw step, Surgical Extraction of Vampire Hexmage. So that one doesn't play. We see the hand, but he has Thespian Stage.
Yeah, now you're just going to see Ingram basically lose the game because he didn't hit the crop rotation with the Force of Will. It's a mild sequencing error. He was trying to basically get it all, and unfortunately for him, he's just going to get 1-2 punched. He had the counter for the first Vampire Hexmage play. He even has Surgical Extraction to potentially fend off a second Vampire Hexmage, but now Long is going to make a 2020 unfettered, and Ingram only has 2 cards in his entire 75 that can really deal with it once it's on the battlefield.
So Ingram gets a look at the deck. You get to see the sideboard configuration. You see some Pithing Needles coming in as he rifles through the deck here. But his life total now going to 17, which is a category of 20 or less.
Now, Long can play around a 4 of Wasteland, or he can play around a 2 of Liliana's Triumph. And my guess, he's going to play around the 4 of Wasteland. And he's just going to go ahead and make that 2020 this turn.
Yeah, there you see Thespian Stage. Goes ahead, main phase, makes the Merit Lage.
Ingram's not dead yet. He can have the Liliana's Triumph. He can also find a Triumph if he feels like a Ponder or Brainstorm and has another land.
Draws for turn. Looks like Preordain was picked up.
I don't think there's a 1-card shot that can do it, and it doesn't look like he has a land in hand. So
2 cards scryed to the bottom. Draws a Wasteland. Long played around that one. The 2020 is already on the battlefield, and Ingram's got to pick him up. We're going to game 3.
Yeah, really well played by Dave Long. That was a great sequence where he basically had Ingram beat unless he had exactly Force of Will plus Wasteland. Or I guess Force of Will plus Liliana's Triumph. I'm curious to see if either player goes back to the drawing board here. Looks like Ingram is considering bringing a couple cards back in. Might just be posturing, like siding in a couple and then siding out the same cards. Looks like Long stuck with his configuration here for game number 3.
I'm really liking this metagame selection for David Long. We saw Bob Huang also playing Golgari Depths this weekend. It's just a really fast combo that mostly plays with lands. You don't cast that many spells that can be countered, and you're picking out a nice spot against these slower blue decks. David Long is a player we see with a ton of success in the Legacy format here on the SCG Tour. Last year, 9 open plays, 3 top 8s. That's a 33% convergence there. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and for someone who basically only plays the Legacy, he comes out to the Team Opens, he comes out to the Legacy Opens. The man really likes Legacy, which is weird because he doesn't cast Brainstorm very much.
Right, yeah, he's mostly into the lands strategies when we see him playing here over the course of his 11 career top 8s. No wins yet, though.
Yeah, I know that he got second behind Austin Collins just a few months ago when Collins won a Legacy Open with the Izzet Delver featuring Terramander. Unfortunately, Long not able to clinch that one, but he might have a win this weekend if his team keeps up doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, that was in this very building.
No, that was Syracuse, wasn't it?
Nah, I remember I was down here in Philly, and I saw Austin Collins waiting for the player interview, and his exact statement was, when I won one of these, I thought I would be happier.
Wow.
You can't make that up.
Moving on. Ingram here doing a table count to make sure that he didn't side out too many cards. That's what we have to call it now. This is not pile shuffling. It is table counting.
Don't want to present an illegal deck.
Yeah, if you do not shuffle your deck a sufficient number of times after pile shuffling, you will get a severe penalty because you are not technically randomizing your deck.
Yeah, there's a couple things that players do when they're newer to tournament Magic. The pile shuffling and then presenting without actually shuffling in between. You catch some newer players doing the mana weaving thing where you put lands between spells and you count that out. Don't do that. Not legal.
But if they mana weave, then their draws will be pretty good.
Yep, that's the problem.
Yeah. I never mulligan. I mana weave for every game.
There's a funny one too, where some players will mana weave and say, you can't do that, and then they'll say, well, I find I draw better when I do it. It's like, yeah, it's because you're cheating. Like, of course you're drawing better. You're stacking your deck.
Look, some kids just don't understand. All right. I believe Dave Long did some last-minute changes to his deck. Decided maybe he wanted to go a different configuration here for Game 3 on the draw. Yeah, I'm not the hugest fan of Dark Confidant in this particular matchup, though it is quite good against the combo decks because you get to hit them with a couple discard spells, stick a Dark Confidant, and kind of ride that to victory, hitting more discard spells or finding your combo pieces. But when you're playing against a deck that can apply a lot of pressure via Tarmogoyf or Delver of Secrets, cards like Dark Confidant lose a lot of their inherent value.
Dark Confidant, yeah, pretty weak against Renan 6.
That too. Yeah, Renan 6 has been showing up a lot lately in Legacy and Modern. It just makes Dark Confidant kind of a joke. But I do think it's an integral part of David Long's Golgari Depths deck. But, we've seen it kind of fall off the map in Legacy or in Modern with Jund decks. I know that Emma Handy wrote an article about Jund recently without Dark Confidant. Jerry Thompson advocates for a version that doesn't play Dark Confidant. And a lot of that is because Renan 6 is so good.
Renan 6 is a big deal. Also, the deck has gained Seasoned Pyromancer as a different way to go long.
Yep. Yeah, you don't need actual cards, and that life loss is a liability in a lot of matchups.
So see a Ponder for Ingram off a Tropical Island on turn 1 as we are underway in game number 3. I finally identified a card that keeps showing up in these Ponders. Yeah, it's the Jace Spellbook Brainstorm.
Thanks, I hate it.
My mind was playing tricks on me. I definitely thought that it was like a
unsummoned.
dark curse
I thought it was
scroll.
Unsummoned. No, I actually thought it was unsummoned for about a minute yesterday when I was watching him play in the feature match area, and then I got a closer look and he started drawing cards after casting. I was like, that's not bouncing something.
I didn't know that unsummoned drew 3 cards.
Ingram here in the tank. Looks like his hand contains Force of Will. Might be thinking about whether to keep a blue card on top or not. I saw Tarmogoyf in there as well. He may want to deploy that as a threat on turn 2, so considering keeping that too.
He does keep on the Ponder. Draws Tarmogoyf and passes turn. In game number 2, we didn't see any discard spells from Long, and in game number 3, it's just a Nurturing Peatland and a pass on turn number 1 again.
And if you're Ingram, you really got to start applying some pressure here. I would lean on Tarmogoyf over Renan 6 just because it clocks pretty hard on David, and you don't have a land in the graveyard yet to get back.
Tropical Island Badlands assembled. I'm going to start calling this Legacy Tron. Renan 6, turn 2 play for Pete Ingram.
Yep, Ingram disagrees, and that's fine. Renan 6 getting up to ultimate status quickly could potentially lock David Long out of the game. A single Spell Pierce or something like that with Retrace can be quite problematic in some scenarios for Long.
So Renan 6 is at 4. There weren't any fetch lands to pick up. Ingram will pass. David Long now has 2 Nurturing Peatlands. He's going to fall to 18 to cast Abrupt Decay on Renan 6. So that's pretty significant.
Now, it's possible that Ingram also kind of expected the Abrupt Decay and led with Renan 6 because if it dies, that just means the Tarmogoyf gets bigger and can close the game more quickly. So
Get kind of a look at Ingram's hand here as a Force of Will and Abrupt Decay of his own. That Tarmogoyf he kept off the Ponder.
He's going through some configurations in his head. He wants to play the Tarmogoyf, but he was thinking about maybe casting Brainstorm before the Tarmogoyf. but that would require him to fetch a green source to cast the Tarmogoyf off of the Scalding Tarn, which you don't really want to do at this juncture, I don't think.
So here's Tarmogoyf Scalding Tarn is the turn. The Tarn represents the 4th power for the Tarmogoyf, currently instant sorcery planeswalker in graveyards.
Now, interesting for Long here is he does have 2 Nurturing Peatland as his only lands, which means he's going to be taking quite a bit of damage here from his own stuff.
Thespian Stage is land number 3. Cast Pithing Needle. You don't see a response for Ingram, though I'm not sure that you're going to see Long name Scalding Tarn, and in fact, he does name Wasteland.
Yeah, the Wasteland's a pretty easy name here. It's one of the easiest ways for Ingram to interact with your various combo pieces. But on top of that, if you name Scalding Tarn, yeah, you Stone Run him, but there's a chance that Ingram actually just has more normal lands in hand.
Yeah, and I just want to compliment Long for not getting caught up in just trying to get him. This isn't a matchup that's about attrition like that. The Scalding Tarn's not really a factor here.
All right. Unfortunately for Ingram, there are no basic lands in his deck, so a Assassin's Trophy on the Tarmogoyf here is going to net no lands for him. But he does get a free shuffle, so he might want to go ahead and brainstorm on upkeep in response to the Assassin's Trophy and then shuffle away 2 bad cards.
Long falling to 16 for this Assassin's Trophy. We have seen some of these Wrenn and 6 decks that play Arkham's Astrolabe, and they're flush with basic lands, but haven't seen that in conjunction with Delver's Secrets. That wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, you need a bunch of different colors, and you need them on time, and Arkham's Astrolabe doesn't always give you that effect.
So there's that Brainstorm in response, that signature spellbook Jace Brainstorm.
He found a Wasteland, so he's going to put back probably a fetch land and look like a red card, maybe a Lightning Bolt or something. He's going to get a free shuffle. Then it looks like he's probably going to go like fetch Preordain, looking for another threat to deploy. One thing about Legacy, sometimes it's hard to kind of keep track of what's going on exactly because a lot of the game is played from hand and not necessarily on the battlefield, whereas Standard is almost exactly the opposite of that, where almost all the game is played on the battlefield and very little from the hand.
The abilities on individual lands also a huge factor in Legacy. The creature is less important.
Wow. Okay, so Ingram actually goes for a Force Will on the Assassin's Trophy to make sure that he has enough power to actually close the game, and he can still shuffle away the top 2 if he so chooses with the Scalding Tarn. And now the Tarmogoyf's actually going to be at least a 4/5 if the Scalding Tarn does crack here.
So Force Will puts him to 19. You saw him do some quick math on his fingers there, figuring out how fast his clock is. Remember, Long is on 16 and still has those 2 Nurturing Peat lands. That's how he's casting spells.
Now he's going to fetch up a land here, and he also has Wasteland in hand. So he can go Wasteland, and I believe the last card's Ancient Grudge, and he can Grudge the Needle and have Wasteland at the ready for a combo, and he's going to start chunking in here for 5 if he main phases the Ancient Grudge on the Needle.
Oh yeah, get that artifact in the graveyard.
Yeah.
So he fetches to 18 before the draw step, completes that Brainstorm, and drew Surgical Extraction.
Yeah, but, Surgical Extraction Thespian Sage is not, the good one.
Sure, yeah, you want to get the Dark Depths out of the deck.
Yeah, because Dark Depths combos with Vampire Hexmage as well.
So Grudge takes down the Needle. That's good. Tarmogoyf attacks for 5, Long to 11. Ingram has played the Wasteland.
Yeah, I think I'd just say go. You can't really afford to lose to Vampire Hexmage next turn. I don't think. Ingram here, really heads-up player. He's got a lot running through his mind right now, I'm sure.
So he passes with the Wasteland up. Long now more or less on a 2-turn clock. Presumably he's going to have to use at least 1 Nurturing Peatland activation here.
He did draw Abrupt Decay for the turn.
It just drew and passed. Ingram just maintained the Wasteland. You see an attack now for 5. Long's going to use both Peatlands to go to 9. Abrupt Decay on the Goyf.
He's taking so much damage from these lands. He's only got hit for 5 damage so far, and the other 6 is just him casting spells.
And he's only playing the 2 Peatlands too. He just drew both of them. Those are his green and black sources.
Yeah. I'm like also fairly confident that Long actually has a Dark Depths in hand and just didn't want to expose it to Wasteland Surgical. So we might see some fireworks next turn.
Second Wasteland for Ingram.
Now, that was a spot where I actually think he might have wanted to just blow up both Nurturing Peatlands while he's tapped out. He's been so constricted on colored mana that you can maybe just steal the game that way. But having this amount of protection with Grudge in the yard, 2 Wastelands on the battlefield, means that you're probably not going to lose to the 2020 anytime soon. But you might just completely cripple Dave Long's ability to interact.
Long to 7 to cast Vampire Hexmage. Now next turn, with Dark Depths, he's in a position where he can try to force a combo twice. The double Wasteland is a problem, though. You see Ingram draw for turn.
This is a pretty interesting match here between these two juggernauts of the SCG Tour.
Update from the standard table. Julian John, 2-0 win over Corey Baumeister. Back in our game here, Ingram is going to now main phase Wasteland on Thespian stage. Still maintains the 1, but takes the stage down. We'll see if he wants to fire off that Surgical Extraction. He does on the draw step. Surgical targeting Thespian stage. It's a little bit interesting considering that the Hexmage is already on the table.
That's fair. Now, Long actually could do something a little interesting here. He could crop rotation in response to get a Thespian stage onto the battlefield. I don't know if he wants to do that, but it is an option open to him to give him kind of that 2-pronged way to interact with his own Dark Depths. Decides to just let it slide. Has Dark Depths in hand. And a second Vampire Hexmage. There's a weird interaction here, though, that I think might... I'm not sure if it's going to come up, but I really hope it comes up. Because if Long can actually play Dark Depths, cast Vampire Hexmage, and then if he uses a Hexmage, Ingram could actually let the ability on Hexmage resolve, put the trigger of Dark Depths on the stack of this has 0 counters on it, make a 20/20, and then use the Wasteland, and then the activation of the second Hexmage doesn't actually do anything.
Got to figure Long's aware of that one.
Oh, for sure. I do. I mean, he's super heads-up player. I'm assuming that he'll see that one. Might just go Hexmage, Dark Depths, attack for 2 pass, and just kind of play it a little slower.
And then the next turn, what he can do is he can crop rotate for one of his own Wastelands and then force the action and be in control.
Right.
Actually, can he just do that this turn? He just crop rotate for Wasteland and then with the 1 Hexmage can beat the Wasteland?
Yeah. No, that actually plays too.
So now that those Thespian Sages are gone, you see him, go to 6, crop rotate a Peatland. Any responses? Ingram is on 1 card in hand. Not a lot you could have here.
Now, I don't think it was maybe the right play, but you have to think to yourself if you're Ingram, maybe I should have popped both Nurturing Peatlands long ago. Dave Long's been so restricted on colored mana sources here, and you would have taken away his ability to cast Vampire Hexmage. But it's so dangerous to do that against this Golgari Depths deck, and sometimes there's no real one right answer. Mm-hmm. You can only find the avenue of success, 4 turns down the line.
Yeah, it is a tough one to navigate for sure. So you see Wasteland show up for Long. He still has a second crop rotation in hand. He's thinking about if he wants to play Dark Depths here. He does. Wasteland targeting Wasteland.
And this starts the chain of events. It's going to lead to Long getting a 20/20 because Ingram, if he targets the Dark Depths, the Hexmage is going to target Dark Depths and make a 20/20. And then it's going to be on whether or not Ingram is able to peel Liliana's Triumph.
Long could potentially play around that if he assumes that the card that Ingram has in hand is not Black Source or Triumph. He can crop rotate for another Wasteland and just hit that Badlands right now. You see a response on the Wasteland. I believe it was targeting the other nurturing peatland. So this will be the time for Long to respond with crop rotation. That's his only green source and a land being hit.
And this plays around days. He's going to do this first. And then with the Wasteland on the stack, I think he's going to do what you said. Crop rotate for another Wasteland, pop off the Badlands, and then cut Ingram entirely off of his ability to interact with this Merit Lodge 2020.
Yeah, so Merit Lodge has arrived. We see Long crop rotating for Wasteland here, falling to 5 for it. Get that Jerry T on there, that's right.
We don't get to see Jerry T's mean mug on camera enough these days, so whenever Merit Lodge comes to play, we got to get some PT in there.
And there's Wasteland and Badlands.
And that's it. Oh, a Ponder.
Force of Will, Thoughtseize is land, that's a shuffle. That's a shuffling.
Yeah, that's the look of Ingram where he knows he has 0 outs, and he's just like, well, I got to cast my Ponder.
Counterspell, discard spell. You better believe that's a shuffling. Ingram's picking him up, though. David Long, 2-1, and Julian John winning on the standard seat. Long John advances to 9-1-1.